Well, thanks for joining us. I just want to ask you first off, the first question, take a moment to introduce yourself and just, who are you and your position that you're running for?
Certainly. So my name is George Petrelli. Born and raised here in Springfield, Illinois. Went to high school here, went to college at the University of Illinois over in Champaign-Urbana, where I graduated with a degree in economics. After that, I worked at the Capitol for a few years in the legislative affairs area. And then I ran for alderman here in Springfield and lost, but then went to law school after that and graduated in 2007 from the University of Carbondale and came back here to practice and have been practicing ever since. My wife and I, Casey, live here in Springfield with our son Teddy. Right now he's just turned 2 years old, so he's very energetic. I'm running right now for the 18th Congressional District here in Central Illinois. And the reason I'm running is because I think there's a lot of problems that we have in Central Illinois, but they're all very solvable if we're willing to work together and make those efforts. So the solutions that I think that are very readily available that we can actually succeed on, I don't see being presented on a national level, and especially with our current representation, I don't see any of that being discussed or even presented as possible solutions that we really need around here.
So then the question comes then, why are you the right person to do this job? I mean, this is a big job.
It is. A lot of it, I think, is I have a diverse background. So initially, I graduated with a degree in economics from U of I. Before that, I was a chemistry major, so I have some background in science. I also have a license for intellectual property and patent law, so I'm a USPTO registered attorney. So there's some background that I think that I have in law and in science and technology that I think are very beneficial as we look forward towards a modern economy. And one of the things that the government has failed on in the past is to recognize where the economy is going and how we do job training and job skills to basically to employ into those businesses what we need for our citizens. So when we talk about the economy modernizing, we see jobs that have gone to other countries or that have gone away based on how the economy develops in the coal industry and manufacturing, and some of those jobs just aren't coming back just based on how the economy develops. And I think I'm the right person for that because I think that I have a good background and understanding of how all those things work. And again, some of the past failures, I think you see a lot of politicians will try to link onto what has worked in the past and say that we're going to do that again, and that's something that's just not going to work because that's not how the economy runs right now. And so we need a government and we need individuals in government who are going to recognize what the modern problems are and also have a background and understanding of how to present solutions that are really going to benefit people in the future.
Now, one of the big parts of your district is agriculture.
Sure.
I mean, a huge part of the district
Absolutely.
for you. How do you plan on helping those farmers in that industry here?
Well, I think reflective in the farming agriculture industry, you see a lot in manufacturing as well, and you also see in a lot of corporate and large businesses, because that's what a lot of farms have turned into. There's a lot of corporate farming, and all of that for-profit farming is good because it creates efficiency and it creates cost effectiveness for consumers. But one of the things you don't see from government, because a lot of their funding and a lot of the policy influence comes from the top down, is you don't see any policy that's geared towards small and family farms. And everybody wants to say that they're for small business, and they want to say they're for small farms, but where's the policy to support that? And we saw with the bailout after the COVID issue, when we had a lot of shutdowns, all of those policies, all of that money, you see it all, and a substantial majority of it went to large corporations who could have absorbed that cost loss, where small farmers, small businesses, family-owned farms, and businesses couldn't have done that. So outside of just agricultural farming, as far as the technique of it that we need to start to continue to improve so that small farms can be efficient, we need policies that allow it to be simple and easier for small farms and small businesses to actually exist. And one of the other issues we see with that is that when we have policies that don't allow them to do that, when we have international trade that gets interrupted, and so you see trade throughout the cost prices that happen when trade is interrupted, and when there's no security in trade, and when there's no consistency in the global markets. I think if you're going to do that and you're going to interrupt bilateral agreements, and that's going to happen, you have to have a plan in place to make sure that all these small and middle farms and family-owned farms have the ability to succeed as we get those new in place. Now, I'm not for unilateral agreements, but if that is the way that, as far as the administration that's in place wants to proceed with it, I think you need to make sure that you protect everybody who's in that industry who's going to be affected by it, and not just say take one for the team, even if you're not going to be around in a year or two. I think you need to make sure that there's something in place, and that's easily done. And so for agriculture, I think what we need to make sure is we need to recognize where its place is in the global marketplace, and interrupting those markets, how much that affects small farms here in Central Illinois as much as it does, as much as a GDP type argument would be of the global market of the agriculture for Central Illinois within the world.
So let's ask you then, say that you're elected, what will your focus be?
My focus will be initially is to get a plan in place to make sure that our farms can be sustainable. Right now the agricultural prices, and you could see reflected before COVID, are so low that people probably aren't even profitable as far as beans and corn price right now. So we need to make sure that there is mechanisms in place whenever the market's interrupted, whether that be through our efforts through changing multilateral agreements or through things like natural disaster, through a COVID crisis. All those things are in place so that agriculture can be sustainable and it's not just left to the fluctuations of what happens when we manipulate the market. So my first step would be to get plans in place to make it easier for small farms, easier for family farms to continue to be successful, and so that they have the confidence that generations down the road that that's going to be there when their family wants to continue to do that. So again, with small business in the same right, I want to see all the policy begin to gear towards how do we make it easier for small business, for small farms to operate? What are the impediments right now that are in place that large corporate farms, and they have representation, they pay a lot for that. They have the ability to make sure that all those things are in place that they need, but we need to make sure that small farms have what they need, because we see growth in small business and small farms. That's where, as we build the economy back up, where growth is really going to be manageable and it's really going to be meaningful, especially here in Central Illinois.
Perfect. So we're out of time, and so it goes really quick, right?
I'm a chatter, yeah.
So, but that's good. That's why I asked such short questions.
Okay.
And so I wanted to give you the opportunity to make kind of a closing statement
Sure.
to the voters.
Sure. So the reason I'm running is because I think there's a lot of problems here in Central Illinois that we face day to day. I travel around as an attorney, and I go to many, many counties. There's 102 in Illinois. I've probably been to 80 of them. And all throughout the common frame that work that I see and the people that I talk to in court that have had financial issues, they're all from basically two things. It's lack of economic opportunity and issues that involve healthcare. And those two issues I think we absolutely need to address if we're going to allow Central Illinois to remain robust and be prosperous for generations to come. So the reason that I'm running is because I don't see anybody right now, our elected officials, right now the current administration, even in past administrations, addressing those issues that specifically affect Central Illinois that I think we do have solutions for, as long as we're willing to recognize that there are problems, but we do want to fix them.